Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Hope you had a great 4th of July. While you were celebrating the birth of our country, some on the left were bemoaning its very existence. Vox.com commemorated Independence Day with a piece entitled, 3 Reasons the American Revolution Was a Mistake. Progressives despise Donald Trump so much they've begun to dislike the country that elected him. Hate has clouded their vision and distorted their values completely. For generations, for example, liberals championed free speech and privacy and due process. Now they lead the charge against civil liberties and all who dare to defend them. Alan Dershowitz has been a liberal icon for 50 years, a stalwart defender of civil liberties. Just this morning, he was denounced by the left as an agent of the Kremlin, of Vladimir Putin himself. His crime? Suggesting that the president might also be protected by the Bill of Rights, just like everybody else. Not allowed. Professor Dershowitz joins us in just a minute to explain what happened to him. Meanwhile, signs of growing extremism in this country on the left are everywhere. Just yesterday, a Congolese immigrant shut down the Statue of Liberty, our Statue of Liberty, to protest the Trump administration's immigration policies. The left applauded that. But take 3 steps back and think about what you're watching right here. Congo is a war-ravaged hellscape, a country noted for mass rape and cannibalism. Imagine escaping a country like that and being welcomed in our country, the United States. You'd be grateful, wouldn't you? Many Congolese are grateful. This person is not grateful at all. She took over one of our monuments to scream about how racist we are, and progressives support her. They have gone insane. On MSNBC, New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg explained that 81-year-old Justice Anthony Kennedy somehow betrayed America by daring to retire from the Supreme Court. Watch this.
This is Kennedy betraying the country. The Democrats could have done very
He's 81
little.
Years old and served 30 years. He's not betraying the country.
We should thank him for his service. To not
Why
let
do you have
Trump,
to demean people in that making your point?
Because they
you
are
have a valid point to
destroying
make.
this
You
country.
don't.
Retiring at 81 is betrayal because it's inconvenient to their political plans. And then there's this, yet more casual racism from MSNBC. Notice how it's just assumed that there's something distasteful or even immoral about hiring someone of a specific race and gender. The left used to believe in judging people on the content of their character, not on the color of their skin. That seems like ancient history now. Watch.
For the president, it's going to be all about the personal connection, who he feels comfortable with in the moment.
So you're saying he's going to pick the man, the white man. 90% of Donald Trump's selections for U.S. attorneys and federal judges were white men.
What happened to liberals? Well, a lot of things. One, they lost power, and that drove them off the deep end. They plan to get their power back, no matter what it takes. A new book by Professor David Ferris is called It's Time to Fight Dirty, and it explains how the left plans to do it. Here's the summary of the book from Politico. Quote, grant statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico and break California into 7 with the goal of adding 16 new Democrats to the Senate. Expand the Supreme Court and the federal courts, packing them with liberal judges. Move to multi-member House districts to roll back the effects of partisan gerrymandering. Pass a new Voting Rights Act, including nationwide automatic voter registration, felon enfranchisement, and an end to voter ID laws. Grant citizenship to millions of undocumented immigrants, creating a host of new Democratic-leaning voters. As Ferris puts it in the book, quote, Republicans have always feared that immigration would change the character of American society. Democrats should reward them with their very worst nightmare. Remember that paragraph. It is the blueprint for what we're about to see. They're going to tell you it's about civil rights or some other principle they pretend to care about, but they're lying. It's about seizing power and holding it. That's their only aim. They're deadly serious about it. While you were grilling in the backyard last night, they were plotting, in effect, a coup. Ethan Bearman is a radio host in California, and he joins us now. Ethan, this really kind of says it all. Conservatives fear that the point of liberal immigration policy is to replace American voters with more pliant, obedient foreigners who will support the Democratic Party. Here you have a guy writing a blueprint for the Democratic takeover of the government saying, that's exactly right, that's our plan. Why shouldn't that offend and terrify the rest of us?
Well, it shouldn't offend and terrify, because what it is it's taking a page from the Republican playbook, right? So right now we just talked about you just talked about the judicial appointees from Trump, for example. That's packing the courts. What about the idea that the Republicans were the party of no for 6 years under President Obama? I'm not a fan of the divisiveness that is happening right now in politics. But why shouldn't the Republicans play the same way that the Democrats play the same way the Republicans do, which is just to oppose?
Look, I will concede this point, which is that politics takes place in the political process, and both parties play hardball, and both parties lack principle, and both parties do things that are embarrassing when they're exposed. But importing immigrants for the sake of changing the political balance and the culture of the country is a different level. We've never seen that before in American history. That strikes me as completely wrong and disempowering to American citizens whom the government is supposed to be representing. Like, it actually is immoral. I don't know how anyone could defend that.
Well, it's interesting because look, if that's the exclusive aim of bringing an immigrant in, that would be immoral. But we should also look at the Republicans and big business, where the Republicans were complicit, bringing in immigrants. Because why do immigrants cross the border?
You're right.
Often it's for a job.
You're not going to get any. You're absolutely right. You're not going to get any argument from me out of this. One of the main reasons that immigrants come to this country is because business groups benefit from it. I absolutely agree with you 100%, which is, it makes it more amazing to me that the left has made common cause with them and now supports it. But don't you think it is fair for Americans of all political beliefs to say, the government exists to represent our interests? You can't bring in ringers because you don't like how the last election went.
Well, there are a couple of different issues there. But first of all, one of the ways that's such a big issue, when we talk about the protests that we were talking about with the Statue of Liberty, among other, the big protests this last weekend, is immigrants have rights here too. So even if you're not a citizen, anybody on U.S. soil is covered by the 14th Amendment. The courts have ruled on that. So how we treat people really does matter. And I don't like when we use people as political pawns. However, the issue is how we treat people. Are we welcoming people to the United States? Diversity
but what about how they
is a
treat
strength.
us? Wait, hold on. There's a lot about how we treat them. How about how they treat us? If you come here from Congo, there are a lot of great Congolese. I'm not attacking the Congolese. I'm attacking the Congo, which is one of the worst countries in the world. So you come here from there, and you immediately take over one of our monuments and accuse us of racism. Where's the gratitude part where you express happiness that you're in America and thankfulness for all the things that you got from this country? How do you wind up in a place where you're taking over the Statue of Liberty when you're not even an American? I don't understand. Why should we put up with that? Why should we like that?
But it is a great tradition here, and many of us are very upset about the separation of the families at the border, the massive reductions in legal immigration. It was just announced that the president himself just is rolling back through his administration. The Army program that allows people to become citizens. Again, this diversity is a great strength. Many wonderful people have come to the United States and become citizens through these programs.
Look, I'm not saying that Americans or even people in America don't have a right to express their views. I'm for the First Amendment. That's why I'm not a liberal. But explain to me, and be honest, are you comfortable with someone escaping a country like Congo, showing up in our country and immediately denouncing the country that took her in and saved her as racist? Does that bother you at all?
Because
it bothers me.
She actually established a personal. She's a personal trainer in New York City. She's established a business. She's participating in our process. That doesn't offend me at all.
It doesn't offend you that someone can escape from Congo and then come and shut down the Statue of Liberty on the 4th of July? Really? It doesn't bother you at all?
No, I think it's bringing attention to a really serious problem that we're having right now.
What would happen if you went to Congo? If you showed up in Congo? And, you became a personal trainer in Congo, and you were there a couple years, and you decide, the people of Congo are disgusting. And I'm going to take over the most sacred monument in Congo and shut it down to lecture the people of Congo about how immoral they are. How do you think they'd respond if you did that?
Well, probably not well. And the great news is we are a country ruled by laws and a constitution.
Uh-huh. But don't you think there's something wrong? Don't you think it's something wrong? I mean, shouldn't immigrants be grateful? I mean, isn't that kind of like a baseline request that you be grateful to be here? We're letting you in. Well, we're giving you money. We're giving you lots of free stuff, as we do. Shouldn't you be a little thankful? No? Or is that too much?
Who's to say she's not thankful? She's probably thankful in many different ways, but also sees a problem with the way that we're treating people right now.
So why doesn't she write a letter to the editor?
Demonizing the other.
Or you go on MSNBC. She has to shut down our most famous monument on the 4th of July. That's okay.
Yeah, I just think that is part of a great process. It was nonviolent. It was non-destructive. It just happened to be annoying to some people, and apparently that's the biggest offense.
Yeah, pretty big offense. Ethan, thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Victor
Doctor.
Davis Hanson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, a lifelong Californian, a classic scholar, many other things, and a frequent guest on the show, and we're grateful for that. He joins us tonight. So, Professor Hanson, you heard the excerpt from the book that I just read aloud, where this professor is unveiling a blueprint for taking back power and says out loud what many of us have suspected for a long time, that the core point of immigration is to change the population of the country and to put progressives in power forever. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, that's what an open border does, and I think the Democratic Party didn't have an agenda that appealed to 51% of the people, especially under the Electoral College, and so they feel that they've flipped states like California or Nevada or Colorado or New Mexico, and that's a winning formula, but it didn't prove that way even with the help of immigration. I think all of this, though, Tucker, you put your finger on it. Barack Obama got elected twice, but he was an ungodly disaster for the Democratic Party. They lost the supermajority, they lost the Senate, they lost the House, they lost 1,000 local and state offices. They're going to lose the Supreme Court, and they can't come to grips with the fact that they control popular culture, sports, universities, and media, but that translates into this type of street theater you reference. It doesn't transfer into actual political power, and they're very frustrated. And then the second thing is, everybody said Trump was good. The Never-Trumpers told us that Trump would be a moderate or a liberal. He wasn't. The Heritage Foundation said he was more conservative in his first 2 years than Ronald Reagan. The left said he was going to implode, or the Mueller investigation, or impeachment, or the emolument clause, or they were going to sue under the 25th. None of that happened. So Trump is almost 50% approval rating. And then the final thing, there's no alternate agenda. We don't know what your speaker, your guest, what do they feel about taxes? They want more government, more regulation, less? Is the Iran deal good or bad? We don't hear any of that. Instead, they fixate on somebody like Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, a kind of an obscure 28-year-old who won an election with 20% turnout, and suddenly that's a metaphor for a brave new world. So it's a frustration that they don't translate their cultural influence into actual raw political power.
That is so smart. Victor Davis Hanson, the overview always in the most clear way. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Well, for many years, for many decades, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz was an icon among liberals, a stalwart defender of civil rights. He's an eminent scholar. He's always fought hard and convincingly for his beliefs, even when they were unpopular, and they have been unpopular. But now Dershowitz has been rendered a non-person because he won't demand President Trump's impeachment. MSNBC went further and suggested that Dershowitz is somehow a dupe of Vladimir Putin. Watch.
He's upset because doing the bidding of Donald Trump, and by extension Vladimir Putin, by attacking Robert Mueller III, he's not allowed to come to the trendiest clam bakes without feeling a cold shoulder.
Professor Alan Dershowitz joins us tonight. Professor Dershowitz, to start with a factual question, are you doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin?
Of course not. I hate Vladimir Putin. I hate what he stands for. I hate tyranny anywhere in the world. I'm not doing the bidding of Donald Trump. I oppose Donald Trump's immigration policies, his approach to Charlottesville, and when I have an opportunity, I tell him that. I am making the same arguments about civil liberties I've made for 50 years and that I would be making if Hillary Clinton had been elected president and people were trying to impeach her. But at people talk about parties as if that's something serious. I don't care about parties. I'm invited to too many. But at a party this week on Martha's Vineyard, a woman said, if Dershowitz were here tonight, I'd stab him through the heart. This is a Martha's Vineyard woman saying she would stab me through the heart. Another Martha's Vineyarder, a professor at MIT, Professor Nicholas Negroponte, who has previously said he wished there were no New York Times and that people only got the news that represented their own personal worldview so that they wouldn't hear opposing points of view. The same guy who said soon there'll be a pill that you can swallow and you'll learn French overnight so you won't have to go through the process of learning French. He's leading the campaign to try to get other people to shun me in every way and not to engage with me. Now they're losing because the vast majority of people, even in Martha's Vineyard and in Chilmark, can't stand people who try to stop speech and try to stop debate. So it's backfiring. But The other point that's very important is they did this to try to hurt me, but the end result is they're helping Donald Trump. They are strengthening Donald Trump's hands. The people who try to shun me are giving Donald Trump and his base an argument about what the radicals are doing. I have one point to correct from what you said. I don't think what you're describing is a liberal phenomenon. I'm a liberal. I think it's a hard left radical phenomenon. I think liberals still support free speech. Liberals still support due process. But the Democratic Party and the left has been taken over by radicals who have no interest in due process. They're like Negroponte. They only want their truth to prevail. They don't want any dissent. They don't want any argument. It's happening on university campuses. And when you have professors like Negroponte giving the students the lesson, it's okay not to engage, not to talk to people you disagree with, it's a terrible reflection of what's going on in the United States of America. So put aside Martha's Vineyard, put aside clam bakes and cocktail parties, and put aside what Morning Joe was saying. By the way, I challenge Morning Joe to have me on his show when he mocks me so that I can respond. It's easy and kind of unfair to attack somebody and then not give him an opportunity to respond. Let's see if he has the guts to put me on his show so that I can tell his viewers the truth.
Well, nobody wants to engage, and that's the point you've been making over and over, I think, and valiantly so, that it's not a question of people disagreeing with each other. It's a question of one side trying to shut down the other and prevent it from expressing an alternative view.
You know, I agree with that,
terrifying.
And that is so bad for America, and it's so bad for young people to see the examples that Professor Negroponte and others are giving. We know the truth, capital T. We don't need to hear any dissenting points of view. It's okay
scary.
if you just hear my point of view. That's un-American.
Totally. Professor, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.